You know, that's like just your opinion, man.
Hello, and welcome to the Audio Opinion Show, where audio people gather and share their opinions. That's the whole shtick. That's the show. We're not doing anything all that fancy. It's audio people talking about audio geeky stuff, having opinions about stuff. Usually we disagree at the beginning and agree at the end because we're all spineless and we can't really stick to our guns. So that's basically what happens. I got a panel of a bunch of folks that do a bunch of different kinds of things. So I've got some RF folks, I've got some sound reinforcement folks, I've got some broadcast folks, I've got some IT folks, I've got people from other countries. I love the wave. It's like we practiced that. Hello, I'm also here. Yes. All right. So let's get this underway. The way we always start this is with a poll, and the first poll is the most important poll, and we're going to launch poll number one. Poll number one. This is the most important question of the day. Who is your favorite Princess Bride character? And we're introducing a new thing for this show. You can choose more than one thing. So this is a multiple choice. Maybe you have more than one favorite. If you choose all of them, that kind of defeats the point of a poll. So try to control yourself. I will read these off because the folks on YouTube can't see it. So the options are Fezzik, who is a big giant person, Inigo Montoya, who apparently thinks that everybody killed his father, ROUSs, which may or may not exist, Miracle Max, because he likes miracles, Vicini, who talks funny, but a lot of people in this movie talk funny, Buttercup, who was never a princess, for the record, because she never said I do, and Wesley, or Prince Humperdinck, or, I think I have one more option on here, somebody not on this list, although if that wins, I'm going to call you out and you're going to have to make the case for why your choice is better than any of the other choices I picked. So vote early, vote often. I don't get a vote because I'm the host and life isn't fair. I have no idea when we're done voting because people can make multiple choices. So I'm just going to give you another like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're done. All right. So we ended up with a tie, very reasonable tie. Fezzik, who has many superpowers, one of which is to get large quantities of people to move by just simply saying, move, which helps when you're 7'4" and weigh 600 pounds. And Inigo Montoya, who believes that everybody killed his father, so they should prepare to die. So that was a good test also for my esteemed panel, since we added multiple choice. So now...
A discerning panel because nobody picked Wesley.
Well, okay, I'll let that go. Yeah, that's reasonable. That's reasonable. I mean, yeah, he's a little bit of a. Well, and I mean, and he became a dread pirate. Like, whoa. I mean, there's a whole thing in this whole storyline. Like, who all did Wesley kill on his boat when he was the dread pirate Roberts? Like, we think of him as the hero, but he was out there stealing stuff and probably like murdering people and like. And then he comes back and still gets the beautiful, bride at the end.
You're not seriously asking for a prequel, are you?
I will neither confirm nor deny that. See, the problem is that no one else can ever do a Princess Bride other than the people that were in the movie. And unfortunately, aging is not a thing we can stop. So... we can't go back in time, and that whole digital thing where they like change the faces is creepy. Yeah, so
that doesn't work.
Yeah, really not a thing I want to. No, I don't want to see Fezzik but younger. Like that's just weird. All right, so now
my other choice was going to be the Dread Pirate Roberts, just so you know.
Valid. Totally valid. There were a couple. Yeah, as I was making the list, I stopped at 9. I'm like, I could actually go with another 3, 4 of these, but my choice was the ROUSs, even though we're not sure whether they exist or not. All right, so let's talk about what we're actually going to talk about. So what are we talking about today? I've got there's 6 choices, but as before, Multiple choices are acceptable. So if there's a couple you like, feel free to pick a couple. So first one, favorite space to mix in: a club, arena, a shed, a theater. I left off house of worship or any other different number of different things. Pick whatever you want. Second option is all about speaker brands: Meyer versus Martin versus JBL versus D&B versus L Acoustics versus Adamson versus whatever else you want. Parallel compression and other newfangled ideas. Are they stupid? How loud is too loud? That's a great relative question. What is your favorite stupid console trick? I was thinking about like the PM4000 with its flip up, mass destruction switch. That's a great little cool switch. But anything is an option. And last but not least, the most important one, I want to talk about something else. So that way no one can say I'm keeping this in a box. So vote early, vote often. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we're done. And I'm going to share it with everybody so everybody sees. And it's favorite space to mix in. What's your favorite space to mix in? Do you like to mix in clubs or arenas or your recording studio? There is no wrong answer. So we're going to talk about spaces and what we like about them and what we don't like about them and all that stuff. And I believe everybody on this this esteemed panel has at some point mixed something somewhere. So I think we're all qualified to answer this question. Anybody want to jump in first?
Oh, all right.
Outdoors.
Yeah. That was it? Outdoors?
I'm sorry. Only because I usually have to pry something out of David. So since he actually said the first word, I'm going to make sure he says more. Can you elaborate?
Just mixing outdoors is great because you're not dealing with room reverberation. You're not fighting that. You generally have a little bit more flexibility with subwoofer deployments sometimes.
There's no air conditioning.
There's that.
This is where the whole back and forth goes to, because I actually, and the question is probably incomplete because I said favorite space to mix in, leaving out favorite space to be in, which is probably a different question. Because I long ago was like, no more outdoor shows. Like 1% of the shows I've done outdoors were pleasant, and 99% of them were unpleasant in some way. But your point is still well taken. Ike, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that at the beginning of this enforced stay-at-home thing, there were so many posts going by about, I lost this gig, I lost that gig, and just people being really bummed out and everything. And I was thinking about starting a thread about peak experiences and things that had just been really great that you could sort of think back on and sort of keep the flame alive with, and one of mine was going to be this gig that I did outdoors in about 1982 or 83, way up in the back of Beyond, up in the Ottawa Valley somewhere. It was this outdoor kind of hippie festival, natural amphitheater thing with a fairly steep hill facing the stage. So I was, quite a ways up this hill and with a pretty good pitch down to the stage. The stage was like made out of like tree trunks and stuff like that. The PA was, I don't even know what the PA was. It was
1982. It was made out of stone knives and bear skins, that
kind of thing. I don't remember what the console was, but I do remember that the band taking the stage around 9 p.m., the moon coming up over the ridge behind. Every PA, particularly back then, every PA system sounded better outdoors because they had lots and lots and lots of built-in problems, as you referred to. And that was just kind of a great gig. I really, really enjoyed that. So I'd have to go with outdoors.
Yeah, I mean, you do, like, you told that story, and I was thinking about, and Dave knows this venue only too well, but I mixed a few dozen shows of the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra at Oregon Ridge, it was an old retired like little mini ski slope, so it had this like beautiful like woof going up between the trees, And I don't remember how many you could sit when it was all like, but it was big. And they had a little like band, like a big band shell thing and a couple towers. And I was doing it back in the 90s. So the PAs weren't great. So like you said, Ike, they sounded so much better outside. And, you know, and orchestras are cool. Like when you get it dialed in, it's just fun. It's, you know, and, you know, it was always in the summertime, obviously, because, you know, warms. And, so it was like the first part of the show was always still in the evening, you know, and it was still light and it was still hot, you know, and still humid. And then there would just be this thing that would happen, like you said, right about as the sun was starting to go down and everything would cool down. And I swore I made this up in my head, but I'm sure that there's a very good physics reason why this is true. It just started sounding amazing. Like I've done nothing different. We're halfway through the show. I got it dialed in the first 10 minutes. After that, it was just DCA for orchestra, conductor mic. Like that was all I was doing. I'd like let the conductor mix the gig. And so at that point, I'm kind of enjoying. And it would just like, you know, twilight would happen. It would cool down. Everything would get so crisp and beautiful sounding. And it was just like, and you'd hear it kind of echoing over the hills, you know, on the ends. It was. Yeah, that's a good memory. I like that idea, Ike, of like, you know, favorite things to kind of hold on to. Chris, go ahead.
Just that having a physics degree means I can tell you why.
I love that. Thank you so much. I knew there was a reason. I knew it wasn't in my mind. The first couple times I was like, am I imagining this? And after that, I'm like, there's a physics reason. So yes, please do.
It will be the air density. As it cools down, it will become more dense, better at high frequency transmission.
And there you go. And I mean, I knew it had
literally
something to do with temperature and air density. Well, and I also
The humidity as well, I would think. Humidity rises a little bit and you get better high frequency transmission as well.
You can get layering, and I know this because I've spent some great days mixing this other festival on flat ground and just been up there on the tower just having a great time, and then climb down to go on a break or something while someone else is mixing and go, oh my God, the horns have been coasting on this layer of air right to me. And it sounds like mud down here where everyone else is listening. And they're all clapping along and having a great time because it was back in the 1980s and no one knew any better. But it was completely like none of anything above 1.2 was not getting down into where the seats were, because it was just sitting totally on top of a layer of air that was about just above everybody's heads.
which again makes perfect sense. I did not stay in school. So kids, stay in school. Then you'll know more. Anybody
How
have
far did you get?
I got about 2.5 years in, and then it was just like, this sucks. I don't want to do this anymore.
Which school?
were you,
University
6 years
or
old?
high school?
Yeah, exactly. Which explains a lot. I literally got like 2 years into school, and in second grade, I said, I'm out.
That's it.
I'm done. Too much. I'm not
How
doing
with
this.
you, Jane and Dick?
I made it as far as grade 11 and 2 months into grade 12. I went to the guidance counselor. I said, Eric, I can't stand it anymore. Get me out of here. So I did bail out using the proper system of talking to the guidance counselor and everything. But
Please let me out. Yeah, I was. Anyway, that we won't go down that rabbit trail. But I will say, like, physics was my favorite class. I do know enough to be dangerous. So as soon as you said that, you're confirming what I thought I knew, but that I don't feel like I have the letters after my name to claim is true. But anybody have a better, and I have, like, I could also answer this question in 4 other different ways.
I don't actually have a favorite place to mix, but I have a least favorite place to mix, and
Which
that
is-
would be an exhibit hall.
Oh, God.
If I never see an X hall again, from any viewpoint, I'm okay. It's so Mac knows this. I went to my first AES convention in New York last year, first audio convention basically that I'd ever been to. And holy crap, because of course, everything is about audio, so everybody's making audio at every freaking booth. And
Back in the day, that wasn't allowed.
Right.
It used to be on the exhibit floor, there were no live speakers allowed. Everything was on headphones or just visual demos. No speakers going at all.
Which obviously, from where we're at now, I don't want to get on a soapbox of beating up on AES because I'd like to speak there again. But no, conventions in general, you're right. Anybody else? Because I'm talking too much.
I'll jump in. I'll start with my favorite thing was mixing in Carnegie Hall back in 1995 or so with a 44-piece band. And needed very little PA. I mean, we're talking 22 strings, brass, drums, piano, a little bit of balancing. But what they say about that hall is true. There's some magic in there. I mean, it's just got a very, very clean reverb. It's very warm sounding. It's very clear.
And
it's
it
hard
really
to
does not
describe
like
what
PA.
it is.
It does
No,
not
it doesn't
like
PA. You have to really be gentle, really light on the gas pedal. And you get it right, though. You get the balance right. And man, it just does its thing. But in general, I would say my favorite places are outdoor. I toss up between outdoor and shed. And the reason I like the shed is you've got no back wall generally, and it opens up to the lawn or whatever you want to call it. So you can put some power in there, and it has somewhere to go, as opposed to a closed room where it's boxed in, and you
still have shade.
And you have shade. Yeah, you have shade, and some of the audience has shade. But, Merriweather Post comes to mind. I mean, maybe it's not the best place in the world, but mixing a couple gigs in there, I remember that that was a lot of fun. I mean, you could really push it, and there's nothing anywhere near it. So, it was a blast. And then outdoors in general, some of the amphitheaters that I mixed in, great fun. And with the right kind of PA and the coverage and everything and the right audience, I mean, man, it's definitely magical, especially like you guys have been saying, that the evening sets in and it just cools off and everyone's having a great time and it's sounding fabulous. And it's like, man, this is the best place in the universe to be right at this moment. So can't complain.
Yeah, and the lights do something really special in that condition too, is that like they start to turn them on around 5 o'clock or something, and you see these like pale discs of color and you go, it's nothing. And then, but as dusk settles in and suddenly the stage lights are actually starting to do their thing, it's like, oh, that's really magical, and it's just so smooth. You don't really notice it until you notice it. So
the lights are making me sound better. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It does. As much as I hate to give anything to the lampies, it does.
Right. Yeah, don't tell the electrician that. You can tell the lighting designer, but don't tell the electrician.
No, because then they'll be taking credit for all of it. Rittenhouse, you look like you were going to say something.
Yeah, Karl, thank you for saying Merriweather Post. That's actually my backyard, so I actually work there quite a lot.
Yeah, right on.
Normal summer. Love the place. And I do love amphitheaters. And I specifically love Merriweather, not just because it's my backyard, but because it's actually made of wood. Instead of having a tin roof like all the normal North American sheds are now, it is all wood. And that actually just, even when you get out to the lawn, you can hear it. It sounds nice. It's not abrasive. And you can give that PA, whatever PA you have in there, a good chunk of gas. And you're just like, wow, it is in your face, but it still sounds right.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about the wood structure, but I knew there was a reason that it was a good sounding place. And I liked mixing in there and seeing shows in there. I mean, it was, it's been a long time since I've lived on the East Coast, but it was cool to be in there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Merriweather was the only shed that I'd mixed in. I just thought they all sounded like that. And then I did a show. I don't remember where it was, but it was somewhere else. That's all I remember. And it was, similar look. And I'm like, oh, this will be kind of, it was somewhere in Baltimore. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And, fired at the PA, and the roof was metal. And it was just, and now it just sounds like I've got metal speakers. Like it just sounds metal speakers. Very quick aside, and then we'll circle right back, I promise. So when I first started doing the Baltimore Symphony, they also performed in their own concert hall, the Meyerhoff, which is like Carnegie Hall, gorgeous sounding space, so nice. But somebody, at some point, had sold them this speaker cluster. This custom speaker cluster from hell. Dave, I don't know if you ever saw that thing, and it was all custom built. This was like early 90s. all of the cabinets were made of metal. They were like aluminum cabinets with some drivers, and it was like this enormous giant pile of death in the ceiling, and it sounded like they were made of aluminum. Like you know, I mean, and I'm sure like physics, like the bodies of the cabinets were resonating and adding that signature to whatever, and it was just like, and you know, whenever I had to do anything, and I did some pop shows and stuff like that, so I was using the in-house rig, and it was just like, this is wrecking this beautiful hall. Now they ripped that out a long time ago, but yeah, the whole like metal thing, it's like, that's not the kind of metal I want to mix. But I'm here all night. Anybody else?
I think Carnegie must have had Meyer MSL3s when I was there, so mid 90s. And
Yeah.
it was well dialed in. I mean, there were no issues at all. We tied into that system for the majority. We put out a few of the small Meyer lip speakers.
Mhm.
And, that was it, man. I mean, it's just simple as good. But whatever, I don't know what they have in there today. But back then, it was a good sounding system.
I think they have DMB in there now.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's usually adequate. Samantha, what's your favorite space to mix in?
I think, you know, the most problem-free would probably be outdoors, but let me buck back a little bit here.
I thought you were going to say my favorite space is the place that's problem-free, and it's like, well, that's our favorite space.
Yeah.
All of us, but no, go ahead.
I do not like being hot, so I'm gonna swing over someplace else and say a at least semi well designed like 2,500 cap club. Like, it's still small enough that it's a little bit intimate, but a lot of times there's a lot of power behind the system, and you can really I've mixed in several places that large that were just so fun to mix in, because you can push it a little bit hard. You don't have to quite worry so much about the space. Like, I've also mixed in, we have a Union Station here, and it has like a 7 or 8 second.
Sorry, remind me where here is. I forget where you.
It's okay, Kansas City.
Okay.
So we have a Union Station, and it's got like a 7 or 8 second tail. And
It's like all marble and granite, right? I mean, it's stone, the whole thing.
Every surface is flat and
I've been in
marble.
there, yeah.
So yeah, and the ceiling is like over 100 feet tall, and that is very unpleasant to mix in. And all you can do is just slap people, like assault them with the speakers. And but yeah, all the, you know, I guess it would be a large club or like a mid-size sort of event space. I enjoyed doing those so much. But again, outdoor is in the ideal temperatures, you know, maybe like fall. Love those, because then you're not constrained so much. So
Yeah, I mean, the symphony shows that I did outside, at least half of those were relatively pleasant. Once the PA went up and I had a lid over my front of house, and you know, and the temperature started to cool down a little bit, but then some of the days were just, ugh. And you know, yeah, I'm not a prima donna, and two, there wasn't enough people for me to be a prima donna. So the first half of the day was humping gear and flying speakers, and yeah, that ain't
in the sun.
In the sun.
And it's like very humid here, so we get all the extreme versions of weather, and so yeah, I'm okay. I do an occasional outdoor gig, but I've been spoiled with indoor things. So
I've never been hotter than in the Midwest. I think it was Nebraska. The air this was in the middle of summer, and some kind of festival. The air was white, and it was like 85 degrees and 85% humid, and just, you know, wouldn't seem to be that hot, but we were just absolutely dying, because, you know, you're just sweating and it has nowhere to go. And
nowhere to go. Yep.
But I forgot. I was gonna tell a joke early. I was gonna start out with a joke, but my favorite place to mix is in the box.
Yeah, mix in the box. Okay, jokes are not our thing. Clearly, mix it in the box, fix it in post. Yeah, I if I had to pick my favorite space, I love theaters. because theaters generally sound pretty good. You know, they're usually ish a nice mixture of a little bit of liveness, but not too much. You know, the downside is quite often there's no place to fly the PA from and various other silly things. Or the mix position is just what? You know, or the in-house PA is what? But basically, if you remove those, like if I can get a decent PA in a decent location in a theater, it's kind of like what you said, Samantha. It's big enough that you can wind things up a little bit.
Right.
You know, back in the day, you're fortunate enough that you don't see nearly as much of this as we used to see, but front of house guys, most of my battle was getting over the stupid stage volume. And so any space that was 500 people or less, I'm just battling the stage volume in most cases. Even when it's relatively reasonable, I'm still just battling stupid stage volume. When I get to a bigger space where I can wind things up a little bit, they're a little bit farther away from the front line. It would start to now I can get some control. It's not just damage control. Now, you know, in the more current world of mostly ear monitors or whatever, that's less of a thing. But yeah, it's, you know, too small and you're still like in the land of ear monitors. Now I've just got weird acoustic drums coming off the stage and nothing else, and one guitar amp, which is weird. So I got to get over that. But yeah, when you get past a certain point and when you get enough space that you can kind of, you know, wind it up a little bit. So you have control, which then kind of circles back to broadcast stuff is some of the funnest things to mix because feedback is not a thing and stage volume is not a thing, and you just do what you want. I mean, there's bleed, but other than that, everything else is not a thing, and it's super nice actually.
Samantha, what's that in downtown Kansas City? Isn't there a theater that's like Art Deco? I know I was in there, red seats and decorated from the 1920s, 1930s, and what I remember about it is the load-in was horrid because those places were designed either as movie theaters, and then when they were sort of converted to, let's say, a live performance space, they just didn't think about the fact that you would have to roll a PA in there and hang anything like what you were saying,
Maybe the
Brian.
Foley Theater, that's in the heart of downtown. It's very old. We have a lot of old converted theaters.
Yeah, that's got to be it. That's got to be it. I remember that one broke my back for some reason. I mean, it sounded good, and it's like what we're talking about. It's a nice size, and you could push the PA a little bit, and it really, you know, worked out fine. But man, just exhausted getting the gear in and out of there.
Yeah.
You know, they had these thresholds, you know, I want to think either metal or stone or whatever thresholds that you had to lift every single thing over to get in there. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just my memory of it.
There's a casino in town that I've mixed at a lot, and the load-in is literally go through 2 security doors, and somebody has to escort you. And then you have to carry everything up a flight of stairs directly onto the stage. There's no ramp, there's nothing. And so, you know, heaving the, you know, road cases that weigh twice as much as I do and hoping you don't ram it was such a pain. And also it was right on the casino floor. So then the noise from the gambling was so loud that it was just, yeah, it was.
I think it's been fixed at this point, but I did a Cadillac show in the Fox Theater in Detroit. And at the time, the load-in was through a sort of a roll-up door off a parking lot. But on the inside, that roll-up door was 15 feet in the air. And you had to ramp everything down from there onto the stage. And we had to ramp down 7 Cadillacs. And the ramp, you know, how deep can the stage be for a ramp that's 15 feet high? They actually had to have a forklift at the bottom of the ramp to pick up the cars because they couldn't, you know,
because they wouldn't make the breakover.
They couldn't make the angle at the bottom of the ramps. I think now it actually has a real load-in door.
I literally wrote it down. Another topic, stupidest load-ins, because dang, I've got stories. Dave knows this one super well, but DAR Constitution Hall in DC, I knew he was already thinking it, is so colossally stupid and has been for decades and will never change because the outside of the building is an historical landmark.
Never going to change.
And
that place has got a like a 3-second reverb in there too, man. It's incredibly live.
It used to be worse. They've done a little bit of treatment. It's a little better. And they did, I will grant them this. So when I first started doing shows at Constitution Hall, the only way onto the stage was down the middle aisle and up a ramp onto stage. So quite literally everything went through the middle of the hall, through the front door where all the patrons come, through the middle of the hall, up the ramp. It's what, a 4,000 seater or something like that? It's a pretty big space. So lots of big shows, lots and lots of giant PAs, lots and lots of whatever, everything, right through the front door. They did eventually do they did some renovations. They treated it a little bit better, so it sounds a little better. And they did there is now a flat stage right from the concourse or whatever you call the area around, but the load in through is just still you're just it was the last show I did was in DAR, which is why this is so I walked up to it, I had forgotten how dumb this is. There's this circular driveway that goes up and around and down, and then there's 2 sets of double doors for humans to go through and another set of double doors for humans to go through, and that's your load in. And the last show I did was 353 footers ish of gear. It's just, and each one of them is backed up in this weird, crazy angle across the street with half the trailer on an angle on a ramp with the ramp going this way. It's just, you just really, there's no solution to this that's not this? But apparently no, there is no other solution. Oh man.
So where's that, Karl?
That's Karl. That's DAR.
Yeah, that's DAR. Yep. That is. Yep. Karl, you're muted. So if you're trying to talk to us, we can't hear you.
I recognize that carpet like yesterday.
Yeah, you can't miss it. That's pretty much it. And the mixed position is up in the box seats.
Yeah.
And
up
back
the stairs.
Yep. And back in the day, the only way, I was taking 4Ks in giant double wide racks, and Local 22 wanted to kill me every single time I was in the hall because it was. And then they finally put a chain motor in at front of house so you could flop your console down and then chain motor it up into place. But it's just dumb. It's just there's so much dumb that you just, yeah. But we digress. But it's a fun digression.
But the other thing is, actually, I posted it the other day. The Hinckley Hilton. Which is the worst room in, I want to say, all of North America because of the concave ceiling. Right. And then you also get, like Samantha was saying, Union Station, which I know Union Station in DC, I've done and Brian, you have as well, so many bands in, and it's a giant marble arena. I remember doing James Brown in there, I think with you, Brian.
Yes, you did. It is one of my most infamous reverb from hell shows. I welcome you telling the story because I've told it too many times.
Well, I'll make it really short. In order to get power, you have to get power from upstairs in this big catwalk, sort of marble catwalk that has all these statues. So you have to get power from up there. When you walk up there now to actually tie in power, you can still hear James Brown reverberating in those freaking.
Yes. Oh yeah, no, the show is still there. It's still going. If you want, James been gone for a while, but if you want to hear a little bit of his show, just visit Union Station in DC because it's still there. I was about, 70 feet from the PA, and it wasn't a huge crowd. It was a decent sized crowd, but it was, but I was clearly in the line of PA, whatever. I had to mix the entire show with headphones because I literally could not hear the show. All I heard was whoosh. And I was like, I know people closer to the speakers can hear something kinda, but by the time I got back here, literally nothing. James Brown did not ever use monitors of any kind, and he's probably at that point had done 4.2 billion shows. So pretty experienced. Didn't come out for sound check. I will never forget. I'm pretty sure it's the same show, Dave, because I think I only did him once in there. But he came, band's kicks off. We did this whole full sound check with the band. Band was fine. Stage volume was what it was. And then he comes out, after they do a big intro, and comes out and kind of does this like, hi, bit. And he literally
Could you do that again, please?
no, absolutely not. Because you asked me to. Now I know how awkward it was. But he did hi, and literally then he did, and full stop, looked like, what is this going to be? Because it was like I just said a word, and 8 seconds later I'm still here. It was, I mean, I will say testament.
Julio Iglesias would love it.
Yes, he would. That you would not need to add anything. I mean, I will say testament to his professionalism. Put on a great show. He was fine. No monitors, no side fills, no nothing. Just he could still do all of his things with 8 seconds of RT60, and it was fine. But yeah, that one falls very clearly into my least favorite places to. Plus that show, there was a balcony on right above me with a restaurant. And somebody dumped their crab dip in the middle of my PM4000 right in the middle of the show. So,
was it good crab dip?
Yeah, I mean, that makes a difference.
I didn't actually taste it. I will say that there was still crab dip in the creases of the channel strips on that console for years after that, because it was just, you couldn't get it all out. It was just this sticky stuff in the. So if you're watching this at home, maybe sound reinforcement isn't for you, because look what you can get. I can get crab dip dumped on my gear and have people yell at me, and it'll be great, and then load out in a back alley with rats at 2:00 in the morning.
I had that happen with a beer once at a venue called the Key to Bala up in Muskoka, north of the city, and I was under the second floor balcony, and a very unusual occasion. It was an encore for an opening act that I was mixing, and which the headliners had graciously allowed because they were from that area.
Oh, cool.
And just did it, and all of a sudden it's like drip, 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 and it's like I grabbed the lid to one of my racks and I sort of put it on my head, and it was mix the rest of the thing. But yeah, people spilling stuff, it happens.
Yeah, this was so surreal, because I really didn't realize. I didn't even really realize I was under a balcony, because it was way up there. Much less that it was a restaurant. Much less that it was just one of those surreal moments of you're just cruising along, and all of a sudden,
are there seagulls in here?
Right. It was just. It was. What did I just witness? What just happened? All right. I don't think we've heard from Ed. And if we have, I want to hear from him again. He's thinking.
I think it's
no. Sorry, my
frozen.
spacebar for some reason wasn't working.
Spacebar.
Yes. No. I've done a lot of outdoor stuff, and I'll agree with Samantha. I hate the heat. I actually had one of those Stanley blower fans when I was doing the Warped Tour, and every day it was 100 degrees out when we did the southern leg of it, and it was brutal. So yeah, I'll stay away from the heat. I get the swamp ass pretty bad, the gig butt, so I try to avoid that. I spent a lot of time as a concert promoter in small clubs, 300 to 500 cap kind of situations, where I was also the sound provider. So I had all the gear, and that was how I saved money, really. So I have an affinity for doing those really small club shows where, there's a ton of stage wash, and everyone's on real wedges, because it's 5-6 bands in a night, and they're all smaller bands playing for a C-level national, and right. It's just ripping loud, but the crowd is just going nuts, because when the crowd was going nuts as the concert promoter, then I was also making some money. So maybe that has a little bias as to why I enjoyed mixing those shows. But if I could get the crowd moving, then I knew that I was loud enough, punchy enough, and having a good mix that they were enjoying and got them moving. Especially because I was doing all age shows, so it wasn't a bar crowd.
Right.
So it wasn't that it was just drunk people dancing. It was that people were actually getting into the music. So I
Were
really
you
like
doing
those
all age shows because you were too young to be in bars yourself at that point?
When I first started doing this, yeah, I started it when I was like 15 years old. I started doing, my mom would have to rent out Legion halls for me. And I used to hire people to do sound. And then I was like, why am I spending so much money to hire, some guy who's like not paying attention? So I bought his gear from him. And then all of a sudden I had a bunch of gear, and then a whole bunch of bands were like, hey, can you come do sound for me? And that's kind of how I got into sound. It was by being a musician and being the guy whose mom would rent the Legion Hall and then bought the gear.
Right.
So that was pretty much
I may be the
my
only
foray.
guy who got into it because it was steady work.
Yeah, yeah, and so far it's worked out for you okay. But yeah, it's like that's another like topic for the show. It's like how did you get in? How did you know?
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Because there's so many cool stories about and people who fell into it, and other people who pursued it doggedly before they ever got anywhere, and that's a cool thing. Chris, I don't remember what your answer was. I didn't mark. I did a bad job of keeping track. So if you haven't answered, please do.
Okay, no, I haven't answered.
Yes, and you did answer that. You told me that all about physics, and that's my real takeaway from this. So now
About physics, yes.
I will feel learned and say, yeah, it sounds better when it's cooler because molecules closer together or something.
For favorite place to mix, though, I'd say it depends on the gig. So there's one of the venues that I sort of started out in. Was a 1,200 cap venue with a big pile of Nexo Alpha, which was really great for sort of rock and roll gigs, that kind of thing. So it was a 1990s point source 4-way system.
Mm-hmm. I remember it.
Lots of power, great fun. But I also quite like the theatre gigs. A couple of hundred seats, soft seat kind of place, nice acoustics. It's no good for rock and roll, but for the right gig, it's a lot of fun.
Right.
I suppose it does come down to the control. Getting
Yeah.
the stage volume and
No, well, absolutely. I mean, it's one of the reasons why, when I first started in the business, I was like, dude, man, I want to mix arenas. And then I mixed arenas, and I'm like, please don't ever make me mix arenas again.
Yeah.
Like, it's just miserable. Like, and I mean, this was back in the bad old days with really bad PAs, but it's not much better. I mean, the rooms are it's bad. Like, it's no fun. Stadiums, vaguely not fun. I mean, arrival times are so screwy, and you get stuff that now is doing this boing 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 all the way around the stadium thing, and that's also no fun. Go ahead, Ike.
I would just object to that in that
No. You must agree with me. It's the whole point of the show.
It may not be fun, but it is so much better now. Like I have had the privilege and honor of working with people that can go into arenas and go into stadiums, and like it takes time, but man, they can sound absolutely as good as any concert hall now. You really need to sweat the details and take the time and do it. But nowadays they can both sound like excellent. So the other thing I just wanted to add is I thank you, Samantha, for reminding me, because it's been 30 years, but yeah, a club with a kick and PA system in it could be lots of fun. It's just been years since I've mixed in a club with a kick and PA system in it. So.
Yeah, I did Nickel Creek at the 930 Club when they were first starting out, and it was freaking magic. I mean, it was just, the music was amazing, and it was diehard fans. Like nobody, I mean, it was the new 930 Club, and it was full. So whatever the seating of that is, but it wasn't a huge show. It was just so, that wasn't a high impact show. It was basically an acoustic show, but it was just, the music was amazing. The fans were like totally into it. It sounded really great. And it was like very, very memorable experience. Adam just said something about Lisner Auditorium, and that's one of the, places I've had some memorably great shows and also memorably bad shows. But I do like that size space. It was, when I said theater, I kind of meant that size space, which is, I don't know what size that is, Dave, maybe 1800?
Listener or 930?
Listener.
Listener's actually less than 930, I want to say, because 930 is like 1600, and I want to say listener's probably like just over 1,000.
Yeah, I was always bad at that. I just have this mental image of it was biggish and it was smallish. I've never been very good at like, yes, but yeah, it's like once you get past like, 1,500, 2,000-ish people and it starts to get a bigger space, then the space starts to become a thing. I agree with you, Ike. I mean, thank you. We have so much better, PAs and so much, if you've got a really great system tech and you really dial it in, we can accomplish amazing things that we never could before. But I mean, ultimately, I think Chris's answer of it depends is probably also ultimately the case. It's like, greatest sounding space in the world, greatest sounding PA in the world, lousy band. It's not a whole lot of fun. As awful as that James Brown show was to mix, one of my favorite memories. Like it's one of those like, pieces and actually I mixed it in headphones and it sounded great where I was. I was like, I was just like 7506s, boom. This is a great show. Like, this is awesome. I hope that was what was coming out of the speakers. I've had some amazing concert hall shows and some just awful ones because, as you said about Carnegie, it's be gentle or it will bite you because they're not designed for amplified sound and they will bite you hard. So all of the above. We've come up to a pretty good amount of time. It's been a fun conversation. I grabbed 2 more topics, so that's always a plus. So if we can chew up one topic and grab 2 more new ones, then eventually I'll have enough things to talk about. For anybody who might be watching this, there's going to be a slight hiatus as I relocate myself to the West Coast for a couple of months, but we will be back. And when we are, I'll make sure everybody knows. I want to thank everybody for hanging out with me and us. As usual, it was a great time. Until then, we will see you later.
Bye-bye, boys.
Have fun storming the castle.
Think it'll work?
It'll take a miracle.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.